Belizean journalist and poet Kalila Enriquez is hosting a two-day workshop for fellow reporters and those in the public relations and communications sector. Enriquez, who lives in Kingston, Jamaica, is in Belize for a short while, and during her short stay, she did take time to be one of the guest speakers at yesterday's TEDx Belmopan event. She currently co-hosts Nationwide This Morning, a popular radio program on Nationwide News Network. Today was day one of her workshop at the Biltmore Hotel, where she touched on domestic violence against women.
It's not just about workshops, and I actually did a content analysis for this workshop to look at the trends in reporting. How many cases do we report? What types of reporting do we do? And by far and away, the majority of news items about violence against women and trafficking in persons were workshops. So the media will come to a workshop and report that a workshop happened, but then you don't get nearly as many reports about the actual cases of domestic violence and the actual cases of trafficking in persons. And so we need to move beyond just the workshop culture and move beyond, take the skills that we learn in the workshops and actually apply them. Attend the workshops and not just cover them. TV people.
Yeah, and in line with that, how can a reporter properly report on domestic violence against women and human trafficking? Because one of the criticism by the public is that, okay, you're putting their story out there, causing them more distress.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the ways that you can do it, and it's always a very sensitive issue to report on, just like when you're reporting on a murder and you have to push a microphone in somebody's face that just lost a child, it's always very sensitive in how you deal with that, and it's difficult. I have had that experience, and I don't like it. It's unpleasant. But you do have some victims who want to tell their stories. And there are ways to try to convince victims also to tell their stories anonymously, maybe, without their identities being disclosed, and so you don't have them receiving the stigma from the society that they may receive, people looking and blaming the victim and say, yeah, Sheeta, you know, I can't say the phrase that I'm thinking about, but she was asking for it, basically, because she did so and so. She came home late, that's why her man beat her, or she wears short, sexy clothes, that's why she got raped. So we need to avoid this form of victim blaming and, you know, educate ourselves on the ways that we approach this subject.
Enriquez also touched on the topic of human trafficking.
So there's this impression being given that trafficking in persons is not a Belizean issue because you only have very few cases being reported to the police. I think it was about 13 over a number of years being reported to the police. So they said, oh, trafficking in persons, that's not a Belizean issue. That happened in Mexico, that happened in Guatemala, that not really happened in Belize. And I think that is a false perception that is being given because I look at the example of commercial sexual exploitation of children, what they call CSEC for short. This is something that everybody knows is prevalent in Belize, especially in urban, poor areas, impoverished areas where you have mothers looking the other way because you have an older man who is providing money for their daughter. The girl, 14, 15 years old, has an older boyfriend who is paying the bills for the family, paying the girl's school fees. And we hear these stories all the time. Yet, would you believe that in 2010, only 5 cases of commercial sexual exploitation of children were reported to the police? Only 5 cases. And it would give the impression that this is not something that is happening in Belize because only 5 cases were reported. Well, I think that the same could be applicable. It could be the case for trafficking in persons. You only have a few number of cases being reported to the police, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not happening.
One of the other false perceptions that the public has is that trafficking in person, human trafficking is just like human smuggling. Can you tell us the difference?
Yeah, smuggling is different from trafficking. Smuggling is when the person consents to be moved. So you have somebody who, for example, wants to get to the United States and they go through the back, as Belizean people say, and they might even pay somebody to transport them through the back to the United States or whatever their destination country is. That's not human trafficking because the person is not necessarily being exploited in that process. The person consents to that process. Trafficking is different in that people do not want this to happen to them. It has happened to them by way of coercion, by way of deception. It has happened because somebody has power over somebody else.
The workshop goes into its second day tomorrow.